Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's edition of Economic Briefcase on Camnet TV. I'm your host, Robin Davazoka, with my colleague today, my co-host, Mr. Noah Njapao. Mr. Njapao, how's been the week?
The week has been good. Thank you, Doc. We were celebrating Women's Day, and I would just like to appreciate all the women.
So tell me, Women's Day, how do you think we should be celebrating it? Should we be sending our women to march, or that's a day to do something special for the women?
Well, we should be supporting the women. I was marching myself. I was supporting the women in our institution to march during Women's Day, and I also believe we should do something special for them. Okay. Despite them having a lot of days in a year that we we do these special things.
I know that you have lived in other jurisdictions where this day is celebrated. Any differences between how we do it in Zambia and how they do it in our country? Is it matching? Do they match in the States?
I don't think they match. We respect other days for women, like Valentine's Day, as opposed to Women's Day. Women's Day, I don't think maybe even a lot of women receive gifts on this day, but in other countries they respect this day. This is the day that women actually receive gifts for being, for being women.
Valentine's Day is a day for giving somebody you love presents. But Women's Day is now for all the women, your mother, your daughters, if you have some, your sisters, and any other women that you know, the people that are at work and things like that. So that's how I know it. Then what do we have for today? What topic are we going to digest today?
Well, we'll be talking about the Ukraine-Russia crisis and its effects on the global supply chain, how this will affect countries around the world, especially after the COVID pandemic. We will try to digest and see how Africa can benefit, how these effects will actually affect the world economy.
So viewers, there you have it. Today we are discussing the Ukraine-Russia crisis and its effect on the global supply chain. And our guest today is a person that we respect very much, a very experienced person, a diplomat, and that's Mr. Gordon MAPULANGA. Mr. Gordon, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for having you, and especially for accepting to come and speak at short notice, given your busy schedule.
No, I'm grateful, and good evening to viewers.
Mr. Njapao, as usual, the figures?
We'll go through the market updates. We'll see what's happening on the markets, what has happened in the markets this week. And as usual, we'll start with our exchange rate. We see how the kwacha is faring against other currencies. So today, the 10th of March, the dollar was trading at 18 kwacha, 14 ngwe. The pound was trading at 23 kwacha, 86 ngwe. The euro was trading at 19 kwacha, 93 ngwe. The rand was trading at 1 kwacha, 20 ngwe. Then metal prices, selected metal prices, aluminium was trading at $3,532 a ton. That's a slight upward movement of 0.9%. Copper was trading at $10,052. That's a downward movement of 1.17%. Zinc was trading at $3,940. That's a downward movement of 3.69%. Lead was trading at 2,401 per ton. That's a downward movement of 3.61%. Tin was trading at 48,200. That's a downward movement of 3.7%. LME nickel was trading at 48,211. That's an appreciation of 0.02%. 2%. Then we go to crude oil prices. WTI crude trading at $111.08. Then the Brent crude trading at $115.09. That's an upward movement of 4.25%. Then once more, building materials for those who are looking to get into construction. Cement is trading at 140, that's for 50 kgs. Paint PVA 20 liters trading at 450. Roofing sheets 0.4 millimeters for a meter is at 125 kwacha. A block, 6-inch block, is at 5.5 kwacha. Quarry dust, that's for 10 tons, 2,200 kwacha. Timber, 5 meters, 220 kwacha. A door is at 600. Toilet seat, 1,800. Bathtub, 2,200. Sewer pipes, 6 meters, 285 kwacha. Towels for a box at 300 kwacha. That's all we had for you on the market update.
I can see the Zambian kwacha is under pressure. I think last week we were dealing with 17.9.
17.9, yes.
It's at 18.4. I think we need to economically pray
that it doesn't continue. It doesn't continue rising.
Yes, and I've seen oil prices shooting up. I know by the time I was working here, Brent had reached, I think, $129.
Actually, during the week, it had hit 130.
130.
130. That was
Yes.
the highest.
Yeah, so I think a lot of viewers will be able to understand why those things are happening and what's pushing the prices up high, and what we have to, as a country, what do we expect from the current conflict that is going on between. I don't like calling it Russia and Ukraine. I call it NATO and Russia. Maybe that's the best way to characterize what is,
NATO and
what
Russia.
is happening. Yeah, because I mean everybody knows that Ukraine is just a pawn.
Some are calling it a war, some are calling it a conflict, some are calling it an invasion.
I'm calling it a special military operation by Russia into Ukraine to denazification. And what are they saying? Denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. Mr. Gordon MAPULANGA. So, as usual on this program, we want you to, we want the viewers, those that don't know you, to know who you are. Who is Gordon MAPULANGA?
Well, Gordon MAPULANGA is a career diplomat and specialized in international relations and the various other consultative aspects about international relations, including foreign policy analysis, formulation, trade policy analysis, as well as formulation, as well as public policy, and various other areas of the field of international relations. So at the same time, I'm a consultant at lecturing level, so I'm presently operating with NIPA as an international relations consultant and lecturer. Yes.
And he speaks very good French.
Oh yes, of course. I'm a foreign language specialist as well. So that's one of the qualities that are available.
Before we dissect the topic, before we cut it down, there are a lot of youth that want to go and serve in the foreign missions. What does it take to be a diplomat? I want to, for example, at some point, I really wanted to be a diplomat because I thought, I love that job, and I still love the job,
Yeah.
Yeah, but not at my current stage of development. But I think later in the future, that passion to serve as a diplomat is there. But there are people that we call career diplomats, different from people, for example, like me. So for that person, for that youth, that man, that woman who wants to be a career diplomat, to be able to represent Zambia on the international scene, not even just Zambia, the UN, COMESA, and these organizations? What does it take to be a diplomat?
It takes a lot, and first of all, it takes the one to have interest and broader knowledge of what happens at international level. And as you have put it, the UN is an international organization. So for one to be able to fit in, they must be able to understand who are the international players, what do they do, how do they relate. So what is it that brings them together, what is it that separates them? So that means that you must have a theoretical understanding of international relations. The various theories that lead to the behavior of these international system players. So that just like states having been the main players in the international system must be very well understood, because as a diplomat you represent your state either in an organization or in another state. So you need to have a broader knowledge of various aspects, economic knowledge. You need also to have political knowledge, especially political knowledge is very, very important. But a diplomat has different qualities that they must also observe. And one of the important qualities is intelligence, which leads to a person that is able to pay attention to little detail. And as you represent, you must be able to gather enough intelligence and report to your sending state accurately. You must always be on the ground, on the lookout.
Like a spy.
Like you must always, wherever you are, as long as you're outside your country representing, you must always be on the lookout, because your sending state requires you to give them feedback.
No, on opportunities.
Yes, you search for. Yes, it's all that. You have to be sensitive.
So
you have to be sharp.
For investments and
exactly. Yes, and at the same time, you need to promote your country back home. So at the same time, you have to understand your state. You have to understand your geopolitical aspects about your state, whatever is involved about your state, what is good about your state, promote it to that country so that you encourage people to go and visit your country. If it means tourism or investment, you encourage them to get there. And
it's quite a diverse field. Eh?
It's a diverse field, actually. It encompasses a lot. So we also have individuals that have a financial understanding, like yourself, Mr. Njapao. You are welcome to the diplomatic decorum.
I think I should pursue a course as an additional one. Perhaps I can serve as a diplomat and be able to do all those things.
No, of course, the diplomatic decorum has departments. Mm-hmm. So we have we have specializations. Others are specialized in economics, mm-hmm. finance. Some are specialized in simply media, and at an ambassadorial level now, that is where you represent the state. So there are various other positions other than maybe the ambassador, or rather the high commissioner. There are these other lower positions, and these lower positions have got specializations. So you go in the field to gather information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming back to our topic, global supply chain. You know, there might be some people out there wondering what is global supply chain.
Oh yeah, global supply chain.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
So shed more light on that, the meaning of global supply chain.
Okay, so the global supply chain entails a network of global suppliers in various products. It may be electronics, agricultural products, raw materials, many other manufactured goods. This includes also services and finance. And in the global, like we have now moved into a global village. So
interconnected.
Yes, we are interconnected, and being interconnected it means we are interdependent. So products are moving from one country to another, one region to another, one continent to another, and this is a chain. So you find that one country, for example, is producing has a car plant, but they may not be able to produce the car in totality on their own, so they will rely on another country to supply the door, the other country to supply the screens. So that is part of the supply chain, and it's vast. It encompasses a lot, including the products like oil, food. You find that the food that you eat here in Zambia, you realize that it comes from as far as Russia, without knowing how it has reached here. The belief, we have the common belief that most of the food we eat comes from South Africa. But who knows, South Africa is just a peak point for the food that we eat and many other products. Just like what comes from Tanzania. There's also another belief that the oil that comes to Zambia is produced in Tanzania. But yet, it comes from as far as Russia.
Exactly.
Yes. So
we have a crisis in Ukraine. There's a lot of talking. There are a lot of stuff. Can you maybe shed? There are some people that have been hearing about this crisis. Probably they don't know what is really happening down there.
Well, there are various dynamics about the crisis in Russia and Ukraine, and the primary cause of the conflict borders on Russia's national interest, notwithstanding also Ukraine's national interest. Now, there's also, beyond Russia and Ukraine, there's interest from other global players, like the Western Bloc, which is the NATO group, and also the Eastern Bloc, which is the Asian Bloc. There's also another big power, China. There's interest in there. So the geopolitical dynamics that involve Russia and Ukraine are the center stage of this crisis, in that Russia sees it her a security a dispensation being in danger should Ukraine align itself with the Western Bloc, which is the NATO. So it sees a security threat there, and that is one of the major causes of the crisis, because security is primary. You know, survival of the state is primary. So it should NATO allow Ukraine to be a member, it will mean all the NATO forces will be now very closer to the Russian border, and that being the case, it means Russia feels threatened, which is the same case as North Korea and South Korea. The crisis between North Korea and South Korea has a history dating from 1952, and as we speak, there's only a temporal ceasefire between the two countries. The ceasefire was signed in 1963, and as such, anytime, it means technically the two countries are at war.
At war, yes.
Yes, so that means, that explains why we have a huge presence of American soldiers along the border, North Korea and South Korea. So that is the likelihood should Ukraine become a member of NATO. That means that there will be a lot of both US soldiers and other NATO countries soldiers along the border of Ukraine and Russia, and that entails a huge security concern for Russia, and that's what Russia is trying to avoid. So in this case, there's a political interest in the regime. So the regime, if the regime in Ukraine is not getting along with Russia, that means also a primary security threat. Apart from that, I think there's also interest, trade interest. You know, Russia and Ukraine have similar products like oil and gas. They also share similar products in the agricultural sector, where they produce wheat and corn.
They're even they're called the bread basket.
The bread basket.
The bread basket.
Yes, of course. Yes, that's the case. So having that in place, it entails that Russia and Ukraine have got a lot in common. Now, to see a friend whom you have a lot in common going up the other way, it doesn't go well. So again, on on an economic front, Russia has the oil pipelines passing through Ukraine to the other countries that it supplies the oil to. And over the years, seeing that Ukraine has been shifting its attention to the West, they've now moved also, they've built other oil pipelines going the other side. So that means the conflict is also bordered on a trade on the products that they have. So other than that, again, is the aspect of, I think, the politics between the US and the Russia, and also the interest of other players like China. So there are a lot of other state players that have interest in the geopolitics of Ukraine and Russia. And other than that, I think there is this aspect of the annexed Crimea and the other three states that Russia has decided to declare the sovereign.
Lugansk
and Donetsk.
Luhansk, yes.
Republic and Donetsk.
Exactly, yes. So these are also a source of concern because one, these territories are Ukrainian territories, but Russia is claiming that they are independent because there are a lot of Russian citizens. So the other interest of Russia is the citizens that are in these territories. But again, the advantage Russia has is that these territories are just adjacent to the border. So that is good for the security of Russia. So Russia is fighting basically for the security benefit of its state. Yeah.
Domestic policy and foreign policy.
Yes, foreign policy.
Now, a lot of people argue that Ukraine is a sovereign state. It's free to do what it wants to do. How does that now affect the whole talk between Russia and Ukraine?
Yes, of course, Russia is a sovereign state just like Ukraine. Now, sovereignty is one thing, but the practicality of sovereignty is another.
Okay. Now, African states have also been divided on the issue of who to support, and I'm sure that comes from the history we have with Russia, and also the relationships that we hold with the West, which is basically the brainchild behind NATO. What is driving these sentiments or the divide between African states? You find, you ask this person, they're saying, I am pro, or I'm against Russia, or I am pro Ukraine. Yeah. And so on. Does this come from the history that we have with Russia, former Soviet Union, the ties that we hold currently with the West through different organizations like the NGOs, IMF, and the World Bank? Well,
this yes vote by Zambia for being against the invasion of Ukraine by Russia has raised a lot of eyebrows. I understand, and I've been following this over the weeks. My view on this one is that yes, it's true, Russia and Zambia have had a very good relationship. I must submit that Russia was one of the first, by that time it was the Soviet Union. It was one of the first sovereign states to recognize Zambia as a sovereign entity in 1964. And that meant to say Russia and Zambia began a relationship from there in 1964. So that was a relationship that began at political level. Over the years,
I think they even went as far as training our soldiers at the time they were fighting the apartheid regime, and also during the fight of colonialism.
They were not necessarily training our soldiers, but yes, they were training soldiers in the region. The Russians,
or maybe they called them guerrilla fighters because they were not really.
Yes, of course. There was just a mix of soldiers from various countries, not necessarily Zambian soldiers. But we understand that the Russians, yes, did assist Zambia at the time when the Zimbabwean regime at that time did attack Zambia. So the Russian government is the one that assisted Zambia with weapons. But of course, we bought the weapons that we used to defend ourselves against the aggression of Zimbabwe. So, of course, yes, I must also submit that Zambia and Russia have had very good ties at social, economic, and cultural level, but mixed relations at political level. That must be understood. We had Dr. Kenneth Kaunda in power in the 1970s, and Russia and Zambia had a misunderstanding in the conflict in Angola. They took sides. The Russian government took a side with a different faction in Angola. Also, the Zambian side took a different path. So there was already a political misunderstanding between the two countries. So we have a history of not agreeing with each other at political level with Russia. So this is not a new phenomenon.
Okay.
Yes. So at social, economic, and cultural level, Zambia and Russia are in good books, and this has never been broken at all. If you ask me, Russia has the biggest embassy in the southern African region, in Zambia. So that tells you how big a relationship is with Russia and Zambia. So of course it is disappointing that Zambia did take its sovereign position based on her national interest. Presently, Zambia's national interest, if you follow the presidential pronouncements,
what might be the motive or the intentions for that stance?
Of course, the intention is to ensure that Zambia pursues her sovereign national interests. What are the national interests? If you follow the pronouncements, political pronouncements by the president, who is the primary ambassador, the first diplomat of the nation.
Yes.
That Zambia stands for peace and stability, peace and security. And a world without peace and stability is not a conducive environment for economic development, because we are on a trajectory of economic recovery. How can we as a country develop economically when the world is not at peace? So the conflict there is actually a recipe for underdevelopment in struggling economies like Zambia. So this is why Zambia went for the idea of condemning the war, stopping the war. That was out of national interest. Of course, foreign policy, the foreign policies differ according to the regime in power. The previous regime could have had a foreign policy that was towards supporting Russian aggression. That is acceptable because that was their line of foreign policy thought. Look at China. China's foreign policy is that of non-interference. And as at now, they're still taking a neutral stance. Why? They're focusing on developing. They're focusing on developing. So Zambia's focus is on developing the nation, developing the economy.
So people are asking, but why didn't we just abstain like China?
Yes, we could have abstained, but it's important that the nation also takes position as a sovereign state. But that doesn't mean that we are at conflict with Russia. No way. It is important for every state to take its position. Yes, South Africa did not do that. Why? If you look at the dynamics between South Africa and Russia, those belong to an alternative hegemon, which is the BRICS.
Yes.
So they are friends. Russia, South Africa, India, and China, as well as Brazil. These are in one group. So you expect that position taken by South Africa.
President Putin was on phone with President Ramaphosa.
Yes. Yes, so that tells you a story. Those have an understanding from a cartel point of view. They have a grouping, an economic grouping. And this tells you a story why South Africa exports a lot of wheat to Zambia. Where does the wheat come from?
From Russia.
Oh, yes. Huh? So it's from...
and we all think it comes from...
It now brings us to, because a lot of people, you've opened us a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, what is Ukraine? Where is it even? What is Russia?
Oh, yes.
So all this that is happening in that area, how does it affect me and you?
Oh, yes.
Bana Chanda,
Bana
Keftumbua, and just a person. First, let's start from the global perspective.
Oh, yes.
How does it affect global dynamics and supply chains?
Oh, yes, especially on the supply chain point of view. The effects are both negative and positive. In this crisis, there are winners and losers. And the winners are those that are able to supply the goods that Russia is being sanctioned. What are these goods? Oil and gas. Then when it comes to food, it's grain products, wheat and corn, plus sunflower oil. So countries that are able to produce wheat and corn are able to be the biggest beneficiaries of this, because Russia supplies about Russia and Ukraine combined, they supply about 25% of these products to the global supply chain. So this vacuum that is going to be left by these two countries in terms of supply will be taken over by these countries that are able to. So the USA, Canada, and the Middle East, including China, will take responsibility of this and begin to benefit. So those are the beneficiaries. But who are the losers? The losers are those that import these products from these two countries. And of course, I know the United States of America also imports the oil and gas from the Russia. Yes, and but that does not mean that America is going to lose a lot, because the USA have been stockpiling these products over the decades. They have in abundance, and there are a lot of companies that depend on oil and gas from the Russia, and most of them are based in the US. So for the US to take this position of imposing sanctions on Russia, they know where they stand. They are able to cover the gap that will be left by Russia using their reserves. So they will be the beneficiaries, and then whatever deficit will be in the global market, the USA will be able to supply, including other partners. So Ukraine is a global partner to NATO or to the European Union. But being a global partner, if these sanctions are imposed on Russia, it will still mean that these products that Russia and Ukraine will leave a deficit on will still be supplied by these other countries. So in the mix we have Australia. Australia has adjusted. In fact, the previous farming season, they've had a bumper harvest of wheat. So Australia is in the waiting for this market. So this is a win for Australia, because now that market will be filled in by Australian supply. And as you know, Australia is a member of the NATO group.
So today, or is it yesterday, American authorities contacted China and said, China, if you don't impose sanctions, as we have done on Russia, we are going to sanction your companies. Then China replied to say that basically that is also going to be more like it's going to have grave consequences.
Yeah. But that's very true, because you remember that China and the USA have been at a trade embargo.
Yes.
Yes, and what was the trade embargo bordered on? China supplies electronic devices to China. To the USA. Yes. And what is it that the USA exports to China? You know, China has a population of over 1.6 billion people, and it is only America that feeds China with soybeans. The USA is the sole exporter of soybeans to the US, and that means the US benefits a lot from these soybeans in China. You can imagine feeding 1.6 billion plus people with one product. How much money do you make from there?
And soy sauce is on every Chinese table.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So that is the threat that China has on trade basis. China is not threatening anything to do with military attack over the US. It's to do with trade, the products. So now that is an issue of tariffs. But again, that trade embargo between the two bigger economies entails that smaller economies like African economies will suffer a big time. Look, Russia is the biggest supplier of grain products such as wheat to Africa. Notably, North Africa and Egypt is the largest importer. Yeah, Egypt is the largest consumer of wheat products from the Russia and Ukraine. Then, it also tells that the entire North Africa is supplied with Russian wheat. And
Zimbabwe also has cried. They get their wheat from Russia, also us through South Africa.
Yes. So we are likely also to suffer suit. That means from wheat we get what? Bread. So we are likely to see a surge in bread prices in the coming months or weeks. And that should not be a surprise. And this entails that there will be more pressure on African governments.
So this means pressure on wheat, pressure on oil prices?
Oil prices, yes. Yes, so that means the transport sector will suffer suit. The industry that depends on oil and gas for production is going to suffer, because on the global supply chain, there will be a deficit. The crude oil that comes to Zambia through Saudi Arabia will be required now to fill the gap that is left by Russia to supply Europe. And that will entail that these guys that produce crude oil now will also increase their price, because the demand will be made high. And this will also trickle down to inflation rates. Inflation rates are likely to rise, and which means most currencies will devalue, because the prices of commodities will go high. And Zambia is already facing that challenge. And yeah, to that effect, Zambia is subsidizing. Even the current fuel is subsidized in forms of tax cuts. So again, already we are at this level. So what else are we going to do? So the only expectation is that the fuel prices will continue rising, and the people just have to be ready for this. But again, it is not the fault of the government, because we don't produce these products, these commodities, but we import.
With the economic warfare that we've been seeing, how do African countries, or rather, how can African countries prepare themselves for such events?
Yeah, of course.
Or optimize our position.
Oh, very good. Let's get to the oil industry. We have two major oil producing countries, Angola and Nigeria. So this is high time that we got to relate well with our brothers in the far west, and that's in the near west here, Angola. The neighboring Angola here, we can source cheaper oil from Angola, negotiate very well. I understand the political dynamics as regard the oil pipeline from Tanzania. There have been politics over the years, yes. We would have done that long time ago. But again, with regard to this dynamic, I think the paradigm can shift to Angola now. And Nigeria also can be brought on board, and they supply oil to various African countries. And again, coming to the food crisis. On the food crisis front, we are seeing an opportunity here as African countries, Zambia in particular. Zambia is endowed with vast fertile land, huge water bodies, both underground and surface water, and with a good climatic condition, with a very good rain pattern, except that this year it has disappointed a little bit, but it's not usual. And then we have available labor force for agricultural production. So there's just need for a deliberate policy to ensure that we encourage the citizens to grow these products that are going to miss on the market. We have potential to grow it in this country.
You see, I've been following the events in Russia, and for me, I like planning in stress situations. And the Russians seems to have done their homework, and they have a solution for everything. For example, McDonald's is leaving, KFC and what. And what they did is that over years, they had been forcing these companies, if it's potato, you need to grow it in Russia. If it's chicken, you need to keep it in Russia. So they say 100% of the raw materials in these shops were from Russia. They passed a law saying you can, for copyrights, it's zero punishment. And they are saying those who are leaving, we are going to nationalize. So as Zambia, we have a lot of foreign investors. How can we make our people realize that this economy, we need to own it? I hear people talk about that contractor was corrupt, this Zambian company was corrupt, we need to remove them, this company, what. But when they're asking for people to tender in jobs, they are saying you need to have experience. So how am I going to get experience in supplying, for example, to government, If when I get that job in government, you say I got it corruptly because I had no experience in doing that. So, but foreigners are coming, they are getting those jobs, they are doing everything they are doing. I was in Lower Zambezi this week. That's where my village is, in Chirundu. There are a lot of Indians that have bought land there. Imagine if it's a land, it's a Zambian here, he has land there and he has built a house. How much we are going to chase to search him and what? Let me just finish what I'm thinking. I heard also Abramovich, they have confiscated this property. Meaning it's a lesson to Zambians to say, you don't invest outside the country because your property can be grabbed. Abramovich cannot go to any court. He's a foreigner in London. But here in Zambia, when you come for my property, telling you, until you go to the grave, I'll just be fighting you because you are getting what rightly belongs to me and this is mine. So what am I trying to say? How are we going to encourage Zambians to learn from the USA, to learn from Russia, from Ukraine, to be able to stand up for their country, to love one another and to do business? What do we need? Do we need to educate Zambians? Is it a personal hatred? Is it an African thing? What is wrong?
I think, yeah, there's a lot that is not being done right, and we have a history, of course, of not having educated our people to take up entrepreneurship opportunities or to engage in entrepreneurship skill training. So even our education curriculum, I think, does not address entrepreneurship, except that at society level we do talk and discuss this, and even at political level there are these pronouncements. But again, our education system does not have room to train entrepreneurs. So it has to start from the base. Identify individuals that would be potential entrepreneurs from the education system point of view. And then Zambians, of course, there are a lot of Zambians that have the heart to do investment out of what they have learned from others. They've observed, for example, from Nigerians how they do things and other citizens in Africa like Zimbabweans. But again, if we have a history of poor policies that have diluted the environment not to be so favorable for locals to do investment, because of course we're talking about financial muscle. Who has more muscles financial muscle between a local and a foreigner? I find that a foreigner comes with a better package to offer, and as opposed to a local. And then of course it's true to say that experience is lacking because there's not much training and education on the investment part. But again, there's need to have a deliberate policy in place to ensure that Zambians begin to find a path. So we're happy to say the president, I think in his previous remarks, he mentioned to say any investment that is going to be made, at least they should involve partnership. Zambians should be involved. At least a certain percentage should be owned by Zambians. We are yet to see that happening, but that is a very good move. So which means to say that those that are in school today should begin also to have space for entrepreneurship skills, so that as they get into the labor market or the investment or the market environment, they're able to fit in because they have skills from school. So in this regard, I think the government has to encourage people through a policy to begin to engage in entrepreneurship, because it's a pity that the government happens to be the biggest employer in the country. It should not be the case. The biggest employer should be the same person that has the skill. So in my case, if I'm not a person that has a thought to say, I'm getting a degree so that I get an employment or I get to go and apply. I'm an independent person. I can be employed, I accept to be employed, but I know for sure that I can stand on my own. I can come up with my firm and be a consultant because I have the skills. So I will have clients that will come to me. So same applies to everyone who is doing a degree program in university. The aim should not be to find a job, but to be able to do something about the skills that they're acquiring through their program.
But do you think that our education curriculum is designed that way to promote that innovativeness, entrepreneur. I know our institution NIPA has incorporated entrepreneurship in almost all the
programs. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So does our education curriculum encourage our students to actually think entrepreneurship after?
No, generally, I think our education curriculum is more clinical-based. It is tailored in such a way that it should produce somebody who seeks employment, rather than somebody who is going to stand on their own and be able to do something out of the skills they've acquired in education. So it is more book-based, more knowledge-based than skill-based. So that's quite unfortunate. So most of the individuals that train in Zambia are those that would wish to seek employment, and this is why even the government is under pressure. There are so many unemployed people, and they are all waiting to be employed by the government. So the private sector can only conscript a few that are practical, and the few that are practical are employed in the private sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are hearing it from myself. We need not only to look for jobs, but we also need to see how we can venture into business. Yeah. You're watching Economic Briefcase on Camnet TV. We are going to take a very small short break, and when we come back, we are going to open the phone lines. You can call us on the numbers that are appearing down the screen. You can also send us messages. We'll be able to read them out. When you call, please mention your name, where you're calling from, and exactly what you want to find out. And when you send the message, please put your name and where you're writing from. Take a small short break. When we come back, we'll pick your lines. Thank you very much.
Camnet TV is becoming big and better. You can now watch Camnet TV wherever you are around the world, simply by downloading the Camnet TV app. With Camnet TV app, you only use less bundles. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
We still need more players, yes, because we need to balance the team. We need to have maybe on one position 3 or 4 players.
The third Camnet Stars football trial is on. This time, Camnet Stars are looking for young, talented and skilled soccer players between the age of 18 and 20 years old. Start your lucrative football career in Europe this July. If you know you are one of Zambia's best gifted soccer players, don't waste your time. On Sunday, the 13th March 2022, there will be trials for professional soccer stars. Venue, Kablonga Boys Secondary School grounds. Time, registration 13 hours. Kick-off 14 hours. 100 kwacha non-refundable shall be paid, and your birth records must be produced upon registration. Camnet Stars, setting football standards for international market.
Sunday, 14th March 2022, on National Matters, join Pastor Moses Chilwa as he hosts the Mines Minister, Honorable Paul Kabuswe.
We want to be cleared of the allegations that have been thrown around that the Ministry of Mines has been mishandling the issuance of the mining licenses. Of course, we have inherited a system. I must say that we inherited a system that was, I'll use a very bad word, the system was rotting.
At exactly 20:45 hours, as they discuss mining sector in Zambia, what is the way forward?
Any license that will have been issued in this period will be null and void.
Invite others to participate through phoning, on Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp and text messages. Make a date with us. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Thank you very much. You are watching Economic Briefcase on Camnet TV. Today we are discussing the Ukraine-Russia conflict and its effect on global supply chain. Today with me is my co-host, Mr. Noanja Pao, and our guest, Mr. Gordon Mapulanga. And we are now taking your calls. You can call on the numbers that are below the screen. You can also send your text messages. Let me ask the director if we have any messages. Your explanation is very good, but my question is that the discussion that Zambia took is good for international trade. I believe Russia knows the position of Zambia. Matulanga-Karulushi.
Oh, great.
So that was the only message I think that we received so far. So dear viewers, you can call in, you can send your text messages and take part in this particular question. So today we are discussing that Russia feeds, it produces about 15% of the world's wheat.
Yeah.
And 43 is it 43 billion barrels?
Like 5 million barrels of
oil a day.
And we are looking at a country producing 15% of the world's wheat, but it's warm only 4 months in a year.
How do they manage that?
And here we have Zambia. We are hardly producing anything. What's wrong with us?
I think what is wrong with us is that we have let things be done by others rather than by ourselves, because we have the potential to do even better than Russia. Look, we have a favorable climatic condition, and we have vast and unutilized land. There's some land in this country that has never even been stepped upon by a human being. Yes, so we can make use of that land, grade it, put up a plantation, employ a lot of people there, because most of the Zambians are agrarian. The huge population of this country is rural-based. So take these people to the plantations. Plantation of wheat, it is on high demand across Africa. North Africa and West Africa, they consume a lot of wheat. But outside Africa, we have India and China that have high demand for these products, including soybeans. As I alluded earlier to that, only the United States exports wheat to China. Soybeans. So Zambia has the potential to produce soybeans, and these products only take less than 4 months to be ready. So meaning that Zambia can produce these products twice a year, and which means we can be exporting throughout the year. I can tell you one thing, the cost of a ton of soybeans as per 2020 was $390 per ton, and that's a lot of money. And if you do actually
a phone call, your name and where you're calling from.
Hello.
Hello. Your name and where you're calling from.
This is Marumo Kennedy calling Chok.
Yes, Gamamba Watara.
Gawotu, Gamamba.
Achiro Gawotu.
Maria Wotu.
Hamwanmi.
I've got a concern.
Yes.
Yes, Zambia, we've got a high dependence on foreign help. Hello?
Yes, we can get you.
Yes, we've got very much high dependence on foreign help. If at all there is no external hand in whatever we do, we are unable to produce anything, because we always look up to an external hand. Now look at the vast land that we have. So for example, the vast land that we have as a country, we are one of the blessed countries with a lot of water bodies around. Now we are unable to make use of all that. We always depend on the way we like as in being active per se to people abroad, instead of us using the blessings that we are given by our God upon us. So the best thing that we can do as a country is to become people who use natural resources that we are blessed. Because other countries like Russia, the country that you're talking about, Russia and other countries, those people year like this year, whereby maybe the rains are in February, for example, or the rain cook, and it means we won't produce anything. So let us make use of the resources that we are given, that we are blessed by. We can make it like brown sugar, for example. They produce sugar. Then in other parts, we can make it to do it maize instead of asking on the rain every day. So as advocates, let's have a mindset of producing instead of importing and everything. So the youth will put in a lot of manpower as a country. Instead of us always waiting what follows, let the government will make it of us because we are still energetic. We put the services river, put Cafe River, the Mamba River, and lots of water bodies. We can make it all over. Then employ the youth, the manpower, we start producing. As we will be depending on things that we don't produce, like oil, we can be producing something that can as a country. We become a food basket. They overstart putting it. Now they say, now get it produced. Just like we appoint the national get produced, Nigeria can produce. So let us produce what we can do as a country. So that we reduce this issue of dependency. Because dependence is too much. Africans, let's wake up. Because we will always be the people to depend on those who are developed. When are we going to be called to develop in other areas? So please, the government, I'm appealing to the government to make use of us youth, not always creating jobs in this over. How is going to jobs in the poor? So let's say you recruit for police, let's say you recruit for teachers. Recruit people who are happy, not foreigners coming from another country, overnight man. As a country, let's make it. Let's produce. That's what I can say. After the road action, let's keep just others.
Thank you very much. Basically, he's saying that let the government not just employ teachers, police. He and other youths are ready to take off their jacket and go and produce for this country. I think if we have people like him in this country, we can reach far. That's my comment.
Yeah, that's very good. I want to agree with him on one factor. Yes, Zambia has a huge water bodies. We have a lot of water throughout. And then there's one idea that we can also take advantage of. We receive a lot of rain in this country. But again, we need to have an idea of harvesting. The first harvest that we must have in the country is water. We must harvest the rain. And then make use of this rainwater for the future purpose of maybe continuous irrigation. And there's a lot of water. If you check with just one day of rain, how much water flows on our drainages. We cannot be having these disasters that are attended to by the disaster management unit. No. If we just do our infrastructure properly, to channel this water to the water reservoirs to be used for various purposes. We can even develop an industry of water packaging because we can distill that water.
We have another call. Your name and where you calling from?
Hello?
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 Hello, your name and where you calling from?
Oh, my name is MAPULANGA-DIPLOMAT. I'm calling from Lusaka.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm calling from within Lusaka.
Yes, sir. Go ahead with the contribution.
Okay, I want to contribute on something, especially on the, we have, as the last caller said, we have arable land, we have 40% water in Southern Africa, Southern Central Africa. Now, we have a problem where these things are not being utilized, especially when you look at, we have a lot of swamp and the dump areas where
much more can we invest? If you look at Luapula, I normally go to Luapula to do some work there. Sometimes it pains me to find that the tomato is coming from Kushi, going to Luapula, but if you look at Luapula, it has a lot of water. People are just sitting without doing anything. The other thing is, if you look at the curriculum, what the Tamapano was talking about the curriculum. Hello?
Yes. Hello, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, I was talking about the curriculum. The curriculum of Zambia should change. Let's incorporate entrepreneurship more than history, where we're learning about history, about Moali, what is our children going to learn out of that? Nothing. We need to have a system that will bring in more emphasis on entrepreneurship and technology so that we develop. But as it is, we cannot develop. The other thing with our local is I'm deeply concerned about the situation whereby we find it. I do in drilling and blasting of rock. I get projects in drilling and blasting. Now we find that everybody is running the same project. Instead of us sometimes being empowered to do that, but if South African comes, he gets a contract. They are using a road, South African, they are the ones that are the contractors. But we have to depend on know-how. We have the equipment, but we are not given the project. This has to come this must change, whereby we are given the project as Zambia. How are we going to be empowered if we cannot be given such project? Everybody is coming from Lebanon to do just work. Yes, sometimes in fact we are the ones that compromises. But if there's any emphasis on that in terms of quality production, people will be able to do quality work. But there's no involvement, there's no say over by the previous government. I don't know about this government. If I thought they will empower us so that we can look at the people know that those are the truth. How are we going to benefit as Zambia? For example, in my case, as a person who has a company in drilling and blasting for God, I did blasting twice, I did blast underground, I did blast in trenches, in foundation, but if at all we are not given by those projects, then the money is externalized, the Chinese country, they just do the blasting. Instead of us, the local people do that job. That is also going to killing us. If I told the government to come up with policies to empower us, to have those projects under us, then we will see a lot of people benefiting. Even if cooperatives that they form, if I told they can empower more governments for more projects, then we will see a lot of development. Because the money will be circulating within them. But if we give the South African government do the blasting for 500 something, but instead of me and nothing, do that job for me to empower other countries and improve local standards. But he comes with him to come and externalize our money. How can we do that? We need policies that will empower more countries. Like this is in one of benefiting. There's one of them benefiting there. But for us, it's a different scenario.
Thank you very much, sir. You have read it for yourself. The gentleman is very passionate, saying we need to empower Zambians.
Do you think there should be a limit on externalization of funds by foreign investors?
Well, in my own opinion, yes. In other jurisdictions that respect themselves, they don't allow externalization like the way we do. Zambia basically is a place where you make money and you ship it out, and that's why for how long did we start receiving FDI? From the 1990s up to now. What is there to show for? There's nothing.
Because when a Zambian makes money, so which means at each level, someone gets to benefit. He employs people, those people spend that money locally, meaning that the people in the neighborhood also get a share. Then also the person who sells tomato also gets a share. The person who sells, there's a trickle down of funds as opposed to when someone just makes money, who's a foreigner, externalizes the funds, and no Zambian benefits from.
Yeah, I think there should be a limit to this. There should be a limitation. I can give you an example of Angola. I have a friend who lives in Angola. Is my former classmate. Is now changed citizenship. Is now Angolan. I was with him from grade 10 to 12, and he tells me money is not allowed easily to move from Angola to another country. There was a time that I was asking for some money, and he tells me I can't be allowed to ship money from here to Zambia anyhow. So those are policies. So it depends now on national policies. So if that being the case, then we need to negotiate for a policy with our government that we ensure that money is not flowing anyhow from the country. So we need these investors to be utilizing our local banks rather than shipping the money outside the country. So now this, where does this happen? This happens at the bargaining table during the time that you are negotiating, you are having a negotiation with a potential investor. So at that particular point, normally it has happened in the past that Zambia has been in a weaker bargaining position because we've been so desperate politically to have an investor so that we can employ people that are crying for jobs. So we have been found in a desperate position such that we cannot bargain for these conditionalities. But I think for now it is a different ballgame. We are able now to reach a point where we can negotiate for this kind of policy, such that there's that trickle down. So the money should be circulating like the Jewish community. Jewish money circulates within the Jewish community.
Exactly. Yes.
And again, the Zambian investors, personal Zambian investors, the locals should not have a habit of shipping their money offshores.
I'm going to be mentioned.
It's best, yes, it's best their money circulates within the Zambian system. Then we'll grow our economy properly.
Director, do you have any messages? We have a phone call as the director is...
Hello.
Hello, your name and where you're calling from?
Good evening, Kandawire of Luansha.
Yes, Kulisha and Kulisha. Okay. Which part of Luansha are you calling from? Camnet.
Of course, not very far away from where your mother lives.
Yes.
We are playing song together with your father.
Okay. That is very good to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your contribution?
Yeah, so I would want to contribute. First and foremost, the conflict in Russia and Ukraine is just yet another reminder that we should prepare ourselves every time, to put our house in order. In Zambia, we have all the brains we need. And we talk a lot, but we do less. That's not a problem. We also look at the negligence we have. We used to produce wheat in Western Province, and I heard on this very platform. And the other thing is that even here in Pongwe, on the Copper Belt, we have a lot of wheat being produced. But I don't know how we cannot maximize the production of wheat to an extent that we can rely on ourselves. So I think we really need to pull ourselves. Our agriculture sector is so much segmented. Why am I saying so? Look at the issue of onions. The farmers or the people in charge of the cooperative, they are saying we have enough onions in the country. But again, when you go to the market, you find the prices are high. Why are the prices high? They are saying the onions are not there. You know, so that is the problem. There's no coordination. You know, instead of having what we are talking about, the supply chain, that chain is not even there. Here we have broken pieces of the chain. So we don't coordinate, you know, to know what is where and how can we bring it in and how much do we have of it and the other thing. You know, that is the problem that we have. So we really need to work on some of these things. We begin to panic. Look at the other negligence. In the past, we have heard of provincial strategic reserves for fuel. So these things, some of them where they exist, they are empty. So if we have enough reserves, we're not going to worry, you know. So we need to do something. And we talk about oil production. There have been all these, what you call them, surveys that have been done. But what has come out of it? Because definitely we have oil. And why should we import oil all the way from Russia and not from Mozambique? I mean, it beats me. What is the main reason for that? Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. You heard this contribution.
Yeah.
He basically is calling for us to up our game and see how we can access certain goods and you know, from neighboring countries.
Yeah.
How we can, our agriculture data, I would like to agree with him, is not solid. Some people will tell you there's so much onions. Some will tell you there's no onions. No, you ban soya oil importation. No, you open. So things like that. You find that pressure groups will pressure government to do this, and in the end, the consumer is confused. Director, do you have any messages before we wind up? Hi, I'm a Zambian with knowledge to run, start a business in meat products and a supermarket. Mostly I'm looking for a mixing machine and a filler machine, but with no cash advice. Ben Lusaka. Good night, panelists. The other points are capital and interest rates, which are very high, and they don't promote entrepreneurship in our country. How can Zambia put themselves in a position to be among the winners in this supply chain? And what policies can be implemented to help Zambia cope with the economic challenges to come? Thomas Lusaka, Andrew Mlenga from Kitu. I think
It's the same one.
It's the same one, yes. My name is Gaston Mwelepete from Northern Province Kasama. My question is, Russia and Ukraine conflict, or war, if you like, will have a trickle down on number of nations where trade is concerned. Why can't African countries stock enough reserves like America does? How can Zambia put themselves in a position to be among the winners in this supply chain? And what policies can be implemented to help Zambia cope with the economic challenges to come? Thomas Lusaka. I think as we wind up, you can just react to the messages.
Yeah, some of the messages. Yes, I think one of the messages is on what opportunities can Zambia take from this particular crisis. Yes, of course, like we've in the first place said that Zambia is endowed with, first of all, a human resource that is able to go and work in the field using another endowment, that is land and water. And then we've also added the fact that we have enough rain which we can even harvest, so which means we can have a cash crop farming throughout the year, and the cash crop could be in the name of wheat, soybeans as well as the maize that we already do. But again, we need to have Zambians that are willing to do commercial farming. So this is where we have a problem. Most Zambians are willing to do business, but it's small businesses just for purposes of consumer purposes. So we want Zambians to like engage themselves in investment, because look, Zambia is as a liberal state, has a free market economy policy. So we cannot expect the government to come up with a state plantation, because we are not a socialist. So being a capitalist nation, we are expecting that citizens will come up with ideas, with help from the Zambian government, of course, to subsidize a plantation, for example. Yes, so Zambians can put their hands together, and then let's say we have a plantation of soybeans. Let's begin to supply soybeans to India and China, where there's ready market. Let's begin to produce wheat in the next 4 months, between now and maybe October. We produce wheat and supply North Africa, because there will be a deficit created by Russia, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So these are things that we must engage the government in. I've seen a lot of Zambians engaging in poultry farming. They're producing hundreds of chickens, because we know that chicken comes from as far as South Africa, Brazil, and the other countries. So we can also bridge the gap between the foreign space and the local space in terms of supply. So we can also do the same in agriculture. That is a very good thing to do.
Mr. Njapo, as you wind up, there was a colleague who said about high interest rates. How do you think they can fall? The other colleague also asking, they want to invest in meat business. What advice do you have for them? They need cash. Where can they find the cash from? And how can Russia, I know he has mentioned that, how can Zambia benefit from Russia Ukraine conflict?
Okay, so first of all, that one who was talking about high interest rates, of course the rates are quite high, but there are some solutions that can be done around that. As it is right now, we have, especially for the meat processing business, we have CEC, Citizen Economic Empowerment, that she can write a proposal and take part in that process. Then also, well, he can as well start small. Okay, start small and not rely on these loans or funders who are demanding high interests. Then how can Zambia benefit from this war or conflict? Well, most of it has been mentioned. We need to make sure that we produce our own food, first of all, for our own people. Then after, we can think about exporting
the surplus
to our neighbors.
Yeah.
So as we wind up the program, ladies and gentlemen, I know most of you ask questions on how you can venture into business and do certain business startups. Next week for you, we have lined up engineer Ben Chiwala. He's the former boss of RDA, and I know he, the last time I spoke to him, he was with Camco, and I know he's a very huge, grower and value addition entrepreneur in avocado. I think the last time I checked, he was doing jam and all those things. So next week we are bringing him for you. You will get your notebooks, your notepads, and be ready to come and write. I think the gentleman that, the colleague that asked about the meat business, I think this is what is next week would be a very good for you week for you to come and get not only knowledge on how to start businesses, but also some encouragement from somebody who is doing it at home. Today, thank you very much, Mr. MAPULANGA, for coming. It was a pleasure discussing with you. I want to be a diplomat after this. So the power, as usual, thank you for coming. Dear viewers, without you, we don't exist. Thank you. Continue watching Camnet TV. To the marketing managers out there watching, to the businesses that are there that want to look for advertising space, you can come and advertise with us at Camnet TV. We offer competitive rates for that, and we are one of the most watched TV stations in the country. Continue watching Camnet TV, because Camnet TV is not just another channel. Bye-bye, see you next week.